since the Provisional Irish Republican Army called a ceasefire and ended its armed campaign in 1997. Breakaway groups opposed to the ceasefire have continued a low-level armed campaign against the British security forces in Northern Ireland. The main paramilitaries involved are the Real IRA, Continuity IRA and Ógálainn Éireann. They have targeted the British Army and Police Service of Northern Ireland in gun and bomb attacks, as well as with mortars and rockets. They have also carried out bombings that are meant to cause disruption. However, their campaign has not been as intensive as the Provisional IRA's. Since 2007, when the British government declared the end of Operation Banner, the PSNI has been the main target instead of the British Army. The Dissident Republican campaign began towards the end of the Troubles, a 30-year period of conflict in Northern Ireland that resulted in over 3,500 deaths. The Good Friday Agreement of May 1998 is generally seen as marking the end of the Troubles. Like the Provisional IRA, the main Ulster Loyalist paramilitaries have also been on ceasefire. However, dissident loyalists have continued to engage in terrorist actions and violence also, although it is mostly unrelated to the Republican campaign. To date, 2 British soldiers, 2 PSNI officers and 1 prison service guard have been killed as part of the Republican campaign. Over 40 civilians have also been killed by Republican paramilitaries, 29 of whom died in the Omagh bombing. For a timeline of the campaign, see the timelines of Real IRA actions, Continuity IRA actions and Ógálainn Éireann actions. Background. Since the 1169 invasion of Ireland by Norman knights at the request of ousted King of Leinster Dermot MacMurrough, Ireland has, in part or in whole, been under English, and later British, administration. Rebellions against rule from Great Britain were unsuccessful until 1919-1921's Anglo-Irish War, when the original Irish Republican Army succeeded in removing 26 of Ireland's 32 counties from the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland as the Irish Free State. Although previously, the offer of Irish Home Rule was agreed in the Third Home Rule Bill, implementation was suspended by violent opposition in Ulster and the forming of the UVF, and later by the outbreak of the First World War. Following the partition of Ireland by the Crown, the remaining 6 counties, located in the province of Ulster, became Northern Ireland and remained a part of the renamed United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. A civil war followed in the new southern state, and the IRA split for the first time into the Irish National Army, the war's victor, which became the Army of the Free State, and the anti-treaty IRA, which was opposed to the treaty that had partitioned Ireland into 2 states. The IRA ceased to be a significant force following its defeat in the Civil War, and it wasn't until a further split into the official IRA and Provisional IRA following the 1969 Northern Ireland riots, that a group calling itself the Irish Republican Army, this time the Provisionals, would again come to prove a significant military force, as a belligerent in what would come to be known as the Troubles. The PRA waged an armed campaign against the British state that lasted until 1997 and claimed around 1,800 lives. The PRA called an indefinite ceasefire in 1997 and decommissioned its arms in 2005 in accordance with the 1998 Good Friday Agreement. But a number of hardline splinter groups, known as Dissident Republicans, have vowed to continue using armed struggle to achieve the Republican aim of a united Ireland. The campaign. Beginning of the campaign in August 1994, the Provisional IRA called a ceasefire. In January 1996, the Continuity IRA announced its existence and vowed to continue the armed campaign against British rule in Northern Ireland. A month later, the Provisional IRA called off its ceasefire because of its dissatisfaction with the state of the peace negotiations. On 13 July, the CIRA detonated a car bomb outside Killyhelven Hotel in Enniskillen, County Fermanagh. The blast caused serious damage and injured 17 people as they were being evacuated from the hotel. Over the following year it planted another 3 cars bombs in Belfast, Derry and Fermanagh, but all were defused by the British Army. The Provisional Irish called a second ceasefire in July 1997. On 16 September the CIRA detonated a van bomb outside the Royal Ulster Constabulary base in Market Hill. The bombing happened a day after Sinn Féin joined the political negotiations which led to the Good Friday Agreement. In November 1997, high-ranking Provisional Irish members who opposed the ceasefire formed a breakaway group that would become known as the Real Irish. During the first half of 1998, the Real Irish and Continuity Irish launched a string of car bomb and mortar attacks on RUC bases. There were car bombings in Moira on 20 February and in Portadown on 23 February. There was a mortar attack on Armagh RUC base on 10 March, and on 2 British Army bases in South Armagh on 24 March. On 10 April, after 2 years of intensive negotiations, the Belfast Good Friday Agreement was signed. Further mortars were launched at RUC bases in Belfast on 4 May, and Berleak on 9 May, but missed their targets. On the 22nd of May, referendums on the agreement were held in Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. In Northern Ireland, the vote was 71% in favour, while in the Republic the vote was 94% in favour. On the 24th of June, the Irish National Liberation Army detonated a car bomb in Newton Hamilton. On 1 August, following a telephoned warning, a rear car bomb detonated in the centre of Banbridge, injuring 2 RUC officers and 33 civilians. On 15 August 1998, the rear left a car containing £500 of homemade explosives in the centre of Omagh, County Tyrone. The bombers could not find a parking space near the intended target of the courthouse, and the car was left 400 meters away. 3 inaccurate telephone warnings were issued, and the RUC believed the bomb was actually located outside the courthouse. They attempted to establish a security cordon to keep civilians clear of the area, which inadvertently pushed people closer to the actual location of the bomb. Shortly after, the bomb exploded, killing 29 people, and injuring 220 others, in what became the deadliest attack of the Troubles inside Northern Ireland. The bombing caused a major outcry throughout the world, and the Irish and British governments introduced new legislation in an attempt to destroy the organisation. The RERA also came under pressure from the Provisional Irish, when Provisional Irish members visited the homes of 60 people connected with the RERA and ordered them to disband and stop interfering with Provisional Irish arms dumps. With the organisation under intense pressure, the RERA called a ceasefire on 8 September, following the Omagh bombing. There was a lull in dissident Republican activity, mainly due to the RERA ceasefire and the arrests of prominent dissident Republican militants. The RERA used the ceasefire to regroup and rearm. Meanwhile, the CIRA carried out a number of minor attacks. 2000 to 2008, the Real Irish called off its ceasefire in January 2000, declaring, once again, Ógálainn Éireann and declares the right of the Irish people to the ownership of Ireland. We call on all volunteers loyal to the Irish Republic to unite to uphold the Republic and establish a permanent national parliament representative of all the people. There was a surge of activity over the next 2 years. During this time, Republicans carried out a series of bomb and mortar attacks on British Army and RUC bases, including a car bomb attack on Stewartstown RUC base in July 2000. That November, an RUC officer lost a leg when a booby trap bomb exploded outside Castlewellan RUC base. In June 2001, the Real IRA opened fire on IUC officers at a polling station in Ballinascreen, wounding 2 officers and a civilian. It was thought to be the first close-range gun attack on officers since 1997. The Real IRA also carried out a number of bombings in London during 2000-2001, the first Republican attacks there since 1997. In June 2000, a bomb damaged Hammersmith Bridge, and in September an RPG-22 rocket struck the CIS building, headquarters of the Secret Intelligence Service or MI6. In February 2001, a British Army cadet lost a hand when a booby trap bomb exploded outside his barracks in West London. The following month, a car bomb exploded outside the BBC television centre, after a telephoned warning. Another car bomb exploded near Ealing Broadway station in August, causing widespread damage. In November, a third car bomb partially exploded in Birmingham city centre. In November 2001, the Royal Ulster Constabulary became the police service of Northern Ireland. The reform of the RUC had been a main demand of Irish Republicans and nationalists. However, Sinn Féin, the main Republican party, refused to support the PSNI until the reforms were fully implemented. Dissident Republicans made clear that they would never support a British paramilitary police force in any part of Ireland. In August 2002, a booby trap bomb exploded at a British Army base in Derry. It killed a civilian contractor, a former British soldier, who was working at the base. On 17 August 2003, the RIRA killed Danny McGuck, a civilian, in West Belfast. The group later issued a statement offering an apology and saying that the killing was criminally wrong and detracted from the goal of Irish liberation. Over the following few years, dissident Republican activity gradually waned. This was mainly due to internal tensions and police actions. There were splits within the paramilitary groups, especially within the Continuity IRA. In 2006, a group calling itself Oglain Ira and Ora NH emerged. Over the following years it would become the most active Republican paramilitary after the RIRA. In 2005, the mainstream IRA, having been on ceasefire since 1997, formally ended its campaign and decommissioned its weapons. In 2007, following the St Andrews Agreement, Sinn Féin finally voted to support the PSNI. Some of Sinn Féin's support base opposed these moves. They believed Sinn Féin had sold out, and was moving closer to accepting the British occupation. This led to more Republicans lending their support to dissident groups. Following the IRA's declaration, the British Army greatly reduced its presence in Northern Ireland and left the PSNI in charge of security. 2009 onward. In March 2009 came the first security force fatalities since the end of the Troubles. The Real IRA shot dead 2 British soldiers as they collected a delivery outside Masserene British Army barracks in Antrim. 2 other soldiers and 2 civilian delivery men were also wounded by gunfire. 2 days later, the Continuity IRA shot dead a PSNI officer responding to a call in Craigavon. This began the most intensive period of dissident activity since the campaign started. The number of attacks has risen each year, with 118 attacks in 2009, 239 the following year and a higher number the year after that. On 12 April 2009, the RIRA claimed responsibility for shooting dead MI5 informant Dennis Donaldson on 4 April 2006, at his cottage near Glentees, County Donegal, Republic of Ireland. The year 2010 saw the first car bombings in Northern Ireland in a decade. The first exploded outside the courthouse in Newry in February, a second exploded outside Palace Barracks on 12 April, a third exploded outside Newton Hamilton PSNI base on 22 April, in August a fourth exploded outside Strand Road PSNI base in Derry, and in October a fifth exploded outside a bank in the same area, causing widespread damage. Also that year, a PSNI officer had to have his leg amputated after a booby-trap bomb exploded under his car. In April 2011, another PSNI officer was killed when a booby-trap bomb exploded under his car in Omagh. It was announced in July 2012 that Republican Action Against Drugs and a number of other small Republican groups were merging with the Real IRA. The CIRA and the group calling itself ONH were not included in the merger. Some in the media referred to the grouping as the New IRA. In November, the group shot dead a prison officer on the M1 motorway. The shots were fired from another car, which drove alongside his. He was the first prison officer to be killed since 1993. Shortly after, the British government announced that the 39th summit of the G8 would be held in June 2013 at the Loch Earn Resort in Fermanagh. Commentators said the British government chose to hold it in Northern Ireland partly to show the world that the peace process has worked and normality has returned. Security sources believed Republicans would try to launch an attack during the summit, which would hijack global headlines. In March 2013, a car bomb was defused near the resort. ONH said it had planned to detonate it at the hotel but had to abort the attack. A huge security operation was mounted for the summit and it passed off without incident. In the run-up to Christmas 2013, there was a surge in dissident Republican activity. This included the first bombings in Belfast city centre in a decade. On the 25th of November, a car bomb partially exploded outside Victoria Square shopping centre in a PSNI base. A man was forced to drive the bomb to the spot and raised the alarm. On the 13th of December, a small bomb exploded in a holdall outside St Anne's Square, following a telephoned warning. Nobody was hurt in the attacks, which were claimed by ONH. Also in December, 2 PSNI patrols were hit by automatic gunfire in Belfast. In February 2014, the Real IRA sent 7 letter bombs to British Army recruitment offices in southeast England, the first time Republican militants struck in Britain since 2001. The following month, a PSNI Land Rover was hit by a horizontal mortar in Belfast. A civilian car was also hit by debris, but there were no injuries. It was the first successful attack of its kind in more than 10 years. On Christmas Day in North Belfast, police came under fire, but were not injured. The attacker was charged with attempted murder. Days later, on the 27th of November 2015, police in West Belfast came under heavy fire. No officers were wounded, thanks to the armor plating and bulletproof glass.